Are you still familiar with this formula? Do you still remember n equals n over the 1 plus n e squared? Anyone? Aga naman ang formula. Well, actually, this is a very well-known. Yeah, that's correct. So this is what we call the Sloven's formula that most of the researchers use in determining their sample size, because it says sample size is better than the population. Population is always the best because it speaks always the true value and the true results. So actually the Slovenes, so this is a simplified version, but I'm going to discuss this further once we are on the sampling techniques. Okay. So first, I'm giving you a brief summary and discussion on the different research designs as illustrated later. So first, I want to give you, I think this is a very well-known that the framework or the blueprint. Okay, so this is jeepney passenger. So actually, the research design can be translated like a driver. Okay, and then the passengers are the data that we gathered all throughout the session or all throughout the research period. Okay, and research design can be categorized. So maybe some of us are working on the exploratory type of research. Exploratory, I think the BA communication doing exploratory type. And I think the BS math in a different approach, which is the content analysis. I think some from the College of Teachers Education also doing some exploratory. And aside from the exploratory, we also have the conclusive. So conclusive in the sense that we have sort of different evidences. Okay, so in conclusive type of research or design, so we can categorize it whether it's to be descriptive or a causal research design. Okay, in the descriptive approach, and the other one is the longitudinal. For the causal type of research design is made through experimentation. So either the field experiments or a laboratory experiment. So I'm going to discuss this one by one. So first, for the exploratory research studies. So as I mentioned, from the College of Arts and Sciences, we have from the Teachers Education, and maybe some from the satellite campus are engaged in this kind of studies. So it says the exploratory is also known as the formulative research study, wherein in this type of research, sampling is less. Okay, so most of the time we are collecting information from, of course, the secondary data. And actually in the formulative or the exploratory type of research, focus mostly on the literature survey, sometimes, or some researchers call this as literature review. So I put it here, the content analysis for the BS Math. I don't know on the other programs if they're doing what we call the content analysis. So content analysis is a different approach. So we also have a literature review by checking the different published, for instance, theorems. So just having a comment and collecting different names or theories in statistics or mathematics. So in this case, we're not having different kinds of sampling approach. We don't have sample size here. So we just collect a different information. Okay. And another, this is from the expert's opinion, or maybe it can be done through a documentation. Okay. So do you have question on this type of research? So this is just examples of different design. The second one is a well-known descriptive type of research. Okay, so a descriptive individuals. Usually in the descriptive approach, we have what we call the structured instruments, or simply what we call our questionnaires. Um, it can be done maybe in a survey type, or just interviewing your specific type of respondents, or you can do this through different examinations of records. So in descriptive approach, this is sometimes called the quantitative touch. So we can simply describe through the analysis of means, describing the different characteristics of your information, or having some sort of inferences if you wanted to prove something on the gathered information. You want to determine the possible differences. You want to check the relationship of one variable versus the other. And the third is the causal, or the experimental type of research. So many of us are engaged to this type of research. So we have a different approaches in experiment type of research. So in the arts and sciences, I think we have from the BS biology and the psychology. They're also doing some experimental research. In the BS math, I think sort of. And the College of Agriculture, of course. So they are very much engaged to this kind of research. Allied medicine also doing this type of research. I think from the engineering and the industrial technology. So also engaged to this and prototype. Okay, so it says when you entered to this type of research, expected that this is an hypothesis testing research studies. And it says in this method, so research method in which conditions are controlled so that one or more independent variables can be manipulated to test the hypothesis about the dependent. So can be manipulated, independent variables can be manipulated to test the hypothesis. It means so variables in our independent, or said to be the predictors. So sometimes we can change this through time. in order to come up with a higher reliability or the higher result in our or impact to our dependent variable. Okay, it's not always fixed, so it depends on the situations. Another thing in it allows evaluation of causal relationships among variables, while all other variables are eliminated or controlled. Asking on their objective, the relationship or the correlation of one variable versus the other. Are you familiar with correlation and the same time causation? So this is a very important terminologies in um, answering problems in correlations or correlational studies or having a relationship with one variable to others. This phrase that correlation is not causation. So when we say causation, it's actually it's a direct effect of one variable to the other. Okay. While in correlation, it's not, as mentioned, it is not causation. So it means that just because two things correlate does not necessarily mean that one causes the other. So for example, in the case in Lokban, so kasi masyadong malamig sa Lokban. So halimbawa, people in Lokban tend to spend more in the shops when it's cold. Let's say the cold season, actually parang lahat naman yata ng months cold. Pero maybe the Christmas and the New Year's season. So again, people in Lokban tend to spend more in the shop when it's cold and less. So from that statement, it does not necessarily mean that cold weather causes them to spend more during this cold season. Or the best way to describe that statement is maybe a cold weather just tends to coincide with Christmas or the New Year's sales. That's why they spend more during cold. Okay, that's why maybe in the result of analysis, you correlate them with a high results and a significant results. But as mentioned, hindi talaga yung pagiging malamig yan kung bakit tumaas yung sales. It's like parang yung smoke or smoking causes lung cancer. So if you mean that those people who smoke in order for them to have a lung cancer, okay? Because there are cases, or if we eliminate smoking, so there are other variables that can affect lung cancer, right? So just a simple discussion or explanation. Okay. So this is just a comparison of the three designs: the exploratory, descriptive, and then the causal type of research in terms of their objective. So in the exploratory type, it's more on discovery of ideas or insights, because they are just reviewing or they're formulating different problems or ideas. While in the descriptive type of research, so it just describes the characteristics or functions of the data or the the data that you want to study. While in the causal, you just check the possible cause and effect relationship of the variables that you have. In terms of characteristics, so in exploratory, so it's said to be flexible. So you can do anything because it's a form of a review or maybe a content analysis. While in descriptive, it's a bit limited or the other way around of the flexible rigid. So marked by the prior formulation of a specific hypothesis. So a bit bounded in terms of the characteristic. Other thing, by the way, in the exploratory, so open the front end of the total research design, while for descriptive, structure design, as mentioned. So because we have a what we call instrument, okay? While in the causal, in terms of characteristic, so the manipulation of one or more independent variables, then control other mediating variables. In terms of methods, so the exploratory type of research uses the expert survey, sometimes the pilot surveys, or having the secondary data, or simply purely qualitative type of research. While in descriptive design, so use also the secondary data um, as supporting info to the surveys or the results from the panels or maybe the observations and the other experiments.